Welcome back to Truth to Tell. I'm Michelle Ali-Murati.
And I'm Andy Driscoll. Welcome to the 8th in our series of Truth to Tell Community Connections, forums held around the state of Minnesota on location, thanks to generous funding from the Bush Foundation and production services powered by the St. Paul Neighborhood Network, which is our version over there of your MTN over here. And KFAI Fresh Air Radio.
We're live here from the Helland building at Minneapolis Community and Technical College, where we have partnered with the school's Community Development Club and the Center for Civic Engagement to bring you a very special forum, perhaps the most elusive of our topics that we've tackled thus far in this series about power in Minneapolis.
We know that the mayoral race here in Minneapolis is getting a lot of attention for the large pool of candidates going head-to-head on the still brand-new ranked choice voting ballot. But does the mayor really hold anything more than the figurative key to the city? We know that the city is officially a strong council, weak mayor form of government. So where does the power really lie? Is it the bully pulpit that elevates the mayor? Or is he or she really in charge?
I actually walked around campus here at MCTC just a week or so ago to ask the student population just who they thought ran Minneapolis, or who got things done in this city, rather. And here's how they responded. Who do you think runs Minneapolis?
What's his name? Ryback?
Ryback?
Yes.
I don't know. That's a good question.
Do you think it's government or business or people or?
Probably business, because there's a lot of business people around here, a lot of business like restaurants, stores, banks, all that stuff.
I wouldn't assume anyone in particular. I would just automatically assume government. But in government, I would assume business because they kind of go tie together.
Who do you think is in charge in Minneapolis? Who gets things done?
The government?
The people of the city of the downtown area kind of run how things generate. Because you see it's the weekend, everybody come down here, party. So it's more all right, the people of the city.
I think it is a combination of the people who live in it, the taxpayers, and also the people who receive the taxes, the politicians. But I feel like the politicians do more of the running.
I'll say it as straight and quick as possible. White people run Minneapolis.
So you think it's all politicians? You don't think there's anyone else running things?
Well, officially or unofficially, because there's the official line, which is the politicians. The unofficial ones are the people paying the politicians. So, could go either way.
I think that Odin runs Minneapolis. Odin's more of a representation of all the beliefs and the cultural combination of everyone and all their beliefs merged together to shape their own reality.
Who runs Minneapolis?
Crooked cops.
And who should run Minneapolis?
Adrian Peterson.
Would you want to run Minneapolis?
I think I could do a good job.
Why?
Because I'm a minority and I could look out for the small people, small folks.
What would make somebody ready to be running the city?
Whoever could make the economy better in Minneapolis.
What do you think it would take?
Just a lot of fight. I think we need more community-based people that are willing to put themselves out there and just work for the community and be able to get everyone together. It's kind of hard just getting people together.
Who do you think should run Minneapolis?
Well, I guess everyone. If you really want to be a part of it, then step up.
Do you want to run Minneapolis?
Probably.
Someday?
Someday.
Who do you think should run Minneapolis?
The people.
The people? And what would you do if you were in charge?
I will make more environment to be safe, better than the way it is now. It's very important.
Who should run Minneapolis?
The people. That's who should run it. So that's why everybody mostly happy when they come down here, because It's generated by the people for the people, and I think that's what it's about.
Do you like the way things are going right now?
I mean, you know, take the good with the bad, but I can't complain.
Who should run Minneapolis?
The people who live in it, the taxpayers.
So do you think the taxpayers should have more to do with the running things than they do right now?
Yes, unfortunately, I think a lot of people are disinterested and would rather go on Facebook.
Who do you think should run Minneapolis?
Everyone who actually contributes to it, not live off of what other people make.
Would you want to run Minneapolis?
Well, hell yeah.
I think it should be a part of the community that also runs the city of Minneapolis, because if the community is running everything, then the community can benefit from everything that they do.
Everyone runs Minneapolis. Everyone runs the world when they create their culture and their ideas.
Well said. Thank you.
Oh, thank you to John Aker and Beth Peloff for putting together the imagery for that piece. We heard a range of ideas in there about who runs Minnesota's biggest city and also about who should. We are here tonight to continue that discussion with our panelists and you. First, our panelists, who spring from a wide range of perspectives, as well as with you, the audience, and what are the roles of voters, policymakers, neighbors, and friends, making this city work for everyone. We'll hear from our panelists and audience members, but we also have several candidates in the audience. That is clear, and we're delighted to have them here. That will be on your ballot in just a few weeks.
Yes, and they'll have their chance to respond during the town hall portion of our show tonight. But first, let's meet tonight's panelists. First, sitting on our panel is Ward 2 City Council member in Minneapolis, Cam Gordon. Glad to have you with us, Cam.
Glad to be here. Nice to have you, Cam. And yes. And also with us is Lena Jones, faculty member here at Minneapolis Community and Technical College in the Political Science Department and coordinator of the Community Organizing and Development Program. Lena, welcome to you.
Well, and welcome to our campus.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. And we also have with us, for a community perspective, a community organizer for Occupy Homes Minnesota, Kat, tell me again how to say your last. Salonek. There we go. I want to say Salonek. Kat Salonek is here with us. Welcome, Kat.
Thank you for having me.
Nice to have you. And for a community perspective, and finally, we have Twin Cities independent journalist and blogger on Minneapolis education and public policy, an old friend of our shows, and regular contributor to MinPost.com, Beth Hawkins.
It's always great to be invited by you, Andy.
Thank you very much, Beth. All right. So now for this show, we'll let our panelists speak for a little bit each at the start, and then as we normally do, we'll bring all of you in the audience to sort of carry a back and forth discussion. So what? Let's start with you, Lena, and talk about how it is, let's say, from the academic perspective, and you're teaching political science.
Sure.
How do people around here look at where the power in Minneapolis lies?
All right, I'll tell you.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll try to stick to our 2-minute allotment. We'll see how we do.
You have more than that.
I can talk a little bit more than that.
Yeah,
all right.
3-4 minutes.
But I think some of the most interesting comments will come from the audience, which is mostly made up of our students as well. So I'll say a little bit about what I've learned from them in my classroom.
Please.
So some of my comments, I figure I'll do a few things. I'm not going to come here with the definitive answers to these questions, but I figure since this is a discussion, I've got football on the brain, so I'm thinking, maybe I'll punt a few balls to you and then see where you run with it. Okay. Now, as I was thinking too, I'm glad you asked me that question because I was thinking about, okay, well, how can I talk about this in a way that will be a little different than the rest of the panelists? Mm-hmm. And I figured I'd talk about some of the conversations I've had with my students about this very issue. It was really cool to hear some of the comments in that video as well, because they resonate with some of the things that I'm about to talk about.
Very cool.
So in my classes, every semester, I do a survey where I ask students questions about the political culture of Minnesota. So some of you are not familiar with the field of political science. There's this whole field of study called political culture that looks at a community's views about who should be involved in politics, who is involved in politics, what's the purpose of politics. So I put a set of questions together related to that to see if students agree with one of the dominant views about Minnesota politics, that we have what is called a moralistic political culture, a culture where the average citizen's voice is valued, where average citizens are encouraged to become involved in a political process, one where money and corruption are less prevalent in the political process as well. And some of the specific questions that I pose relate to how welcome is the process to average citizens? What is the influence of money in politics? Whether or not certain demographics, namely people of color, immigrants, young people, low-income people, are welcome in policymaking arenas. And then I kind of analyze the data overall and then look at different subsets of the students who've taken the survey as well to see if there are any differences there. And over the years that I've done this, there's some real consistencies that show up every time. One of the things that jumps out is this view that money actually does have a lot of influence in politics.
No, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Surprise, surprise. I'm sure you're all shocked about that. The question is actually, does money have, do you think that money has less of an influence in politics in Minnesota than in other states? Which is one of the assertions of folks who argue that we have this moralistic political culture, and students pretty strongly disagree with that statement. Then the other thing that jumps out year after year is around how students respond to questions about how open the political process is to people of color and immigrants. And you see a very stark difference between how white respondents answer that question and how people of color answer that question.
Oh, boy.
To sum it up really briefly,
Yeah, please.
the white respondents tend to have a much more positive view about the openness of our political culture and the political realm to people of color and immigrants. So anyway, my speaking about this is a way of putting out there the importance of, if we're discussing power in Minneapolis, it's essential that we also address the issue of race.
Got to.
So we're throwing that out there for, in a couple minutes when we get to the audience, we want them to respond to that.
All right.
So,
All right.
Cam, being a white male, what?
How do you respond to that?
Well, you've been
Putting
in
you on the
office for a
spot.
while, but you've also been considered a maverick in many ways, and in some of your initiatives as well as your votes. So how do you view this whole thing, and what about what Lena has to say?
So one of the interesting things that I discovered early on was that actually the state has a lot to do with running the city of Minneapolis. In fact, we can only do anything in the city because the state allows us to. We are a creature of the state. They often reach down. They say what we can do, what we can't do. Some of my greatest ideas, for example, that I thought were real innovations and we could really make a difference. One of them was campaign finance reform. I thought, why doesn't Minneapolis simply raise the bar? And why don't we have more strict rules here so that we can actually see more often?
And can't you, with
No,
a
we
charter,
can't.
with a charter, with a city charter?
No, we cannot. There's a special state law that says any city in Hennepin County of 300,000 or more can't have any different rules than the state. Not even higher standards or lowers, which I thought was interesting. Then I also thought, well, what about all these taxpayers who aren't actually citizens? In Maryland, they let non-citizens vote. If they move into a place, if 30 days they're there, they can register and vote. Why don't we do that in Minneapolis? Lo and behold, we can't. The Constitution of the state says you can't do that. So there's lots of ways that we are constricted and limited, and sometimes the state will actually reach in and pass special laws. Now, sometimes there'll be a special law about Minneapolis and we need to give consent.
Yeah.
So sometimes we can give consent.
I thought all special laws required city council consent.
Yep, and we gave consent to the Vikings law, for example.
Yes.
I regretted that, but We did.
Yeah.
We also have to give consent to major highway projects and also to light rail lines. So that's interesting. We get a little authority, and there's a relationship there.
Well, and there's a whole other layer of funding issues there as well, how the fiscal responsibilities of larger cities to the state also, but we can maybe talk about that.
Yeah, and I don't have a couple other things I wanted to hit before my time is up too. Because
Go ahead,
I do think there's a
quickly.
lot that we do decide in the city of Minneapolis, and actually it is a strong council. I think the mayor can play a significant role, especially if it's an effective mayor and can build coalitions.
And
on the council.
he or she runs the police department for one thing,
There's a
right?
direct thing in the charter that I think we should change, but yes, the police department is disciplined directly from the mayor. In fact, I even heard from our city attorney that we're not even supposed to give a staff direction to the police department. It's
Good.
more like a request as a council. All the other department heads, however, take direction, and the departments do, which raises another interesting issue. Our professional staff. The professional staff has a great deal of influence in who we have working there and their recommendations, because the elected officials aren't necessarily experts in all of this, in finance or in land use and development or in solid waste.
So there's a
or,
lot of
name it.
power in what some people would disparagingly perhaps call the bureaucracy. The staff, some of them appointed at will, of course, but others being on the staff, controlling a great deal of
Absolutely, and a key formula to success for me is to get that staff recommendation and to try to find that sweet spot where my initiative that I want to bring forward matches with what the staff might recommend. And then there's another piece of that, which is what the community wants, because there is, in a very real sense, the city council and the mayor are responding to what's going on out in the city, because there's an enormous amount of people out there doing activity, doing things, and working hard. Sometimes we're trying to control some of that so it doesn't cause trouble for anybody else, but take new businesses starting. We're always trying to keep up with that. Mobile food vending, other things we have regulations against. One of the big examples that I've worked on is urban agriculture. Back in the 60s, we actually banned it, prohibited it. It wasn't really on my radar, but there was a groundswell of community people saying, we want to grow food and sell it. We want to grow food and sell it. Can we do it? Can we do it? So it really made a difference.
The community gardens proliferate now.
And the one thing I want to stress, though, is that there is something about money that seems to make a difference. And it's not necessarily money in terms of contributions to candidates, although that can also make a big difference. But if you're somebody and you want to do something, and you can hire a lobbyist, you can hire a lawyer, you can hire an architect, and then you can hire other experts to come in and help talk to the council, present your case to the staff, or else even go hire people to go organize out in the community. That kind of thing can have a big influence.
Well,
And
that seems to be a recurring theme that we're getting here is money, money, money.
Yeah, money is a lot. So let's jump to the community organizer, and then we'll let the observer jump in at the end of it. Kat Salonek, as part of Occupy Homes, sorry about that, popping, Minnesota. You've done a lot of work in preventing foreclosures, and you've had to deal with many of the power brokers in this town around that, banks, certainly, and the police and the sheriff. And go ahead.
We sure have. I think everyone here knows that Wall Street does have a significant power here in Minneapolis, which does limit democracy and advancements for the people in our city. But those who rise up to fight some of that Wall Street greed are winning. And since the economic crisis, Minneapolis has been under attack by Wall Street banks foreclosing on homes, only to leave many vacant, blight in our communities. The Occupy Wall Street momentum in our city was one of the strongest in the country. Primary reason for this was its ability to transform into OccupyHomesMN, a people-powered machine that creates tangible change in our neighborhoods. Occupy Homes has had 12 home victories, which have kept families in their home at fair market rates. In addition, Occupy Homes has reclaimed vacant homes, transforming them from blight into livable spaces for people experiencing homelessness. Occupy Homes has used these campaigns to build transformative political power. Elected officials like the mayor do pander to the desires of Wall Street bankers. Mayor R.T. Ryback is good friends with Richard Davis, the CEO of U.S. Bank. They even play golf together. The mayor says he has a 10-year plan to end homelessness. However, the numbers have risen since his plan launched. The mayor allows police resources to be used for Wall Street evictions, a gross misuse of public dollars that should be invested instead in homeowners in our communities. Another example of how the government continues to cater to Wall Street while ignoring the ability to repair the problems on Main Street. Right?
Okay, so it's okay to pitch your bit here. We just want to be sure that we're making certain that we are discussing where the power in the city lies.
Sure.
And you've properly said that it's, in your view, it's the mayor, it's the police, it's the bankers, and
The banks, yeah.
And so that we're gonna ask you to come back to this perhaps a little bit later, okay?
Sure. I also wanted to point out that however much power and control the mayor, who controls the police, and the Hennepin County sheriffs have, the ability of people to actually change laws in Minnesota has occurred through social movement and through neighbors coming together to defend homes. That is what, for example, passed the Minnesota Homeowner Bill of Rights, one of the strongest laws in the country for protecting homeowners. And we've also seen that the police have shifted their internal policies around evictions because of community members coming together to defend homes from evictions.
Okay.
And I hope we can discuss that a lot in the second half of the show, especially with our audience.
Perhaps people in the audience will also have some things to say about that. Yeah. So we're going to be taking a break in just a second, and I'm going to ask Beth to perhaps hold off because I have a feeling. Do you have something to say?
I'm fine. I'm kidding.
Just so that we do, okay. All right, let's start you out.
Okay.
Let's start you out.
All
and
right.
then we'll go for about 3 minutes. If there's more to say after the break, that's what we'll do.
I'm trained to be succinct.
I appreciate that.
So I realized as I was getting ready this afternoon for this event that I probably for the first and perhaps last time in my life was going to sound like the most conservative person in the room.
We love having conservative people in the room.
Well, I'm at
Beth.
least going
What
to
do you
keep it
mean?
interesting, I think,
Yeah.
as well. So I have really good things to say about the mayor, big business, and money in Minneapolis. I, for the last couple of years, have split my time with MinnPost between covering education and issues surrounding the achievement gap and our twin campaigns for marriage equality, the first one for and against the constitutional amendment, and then the one to extend marriage rights to all Minnesotans. And as I thought about it, I thought what's the hallmark of both of those things and what's important about the next mayor and what's been important about the mayor we have is the ability to get Minnesota's civic and business leaders to invest in keeping this a good place to live. General Mills poured tons of money into the marriage equality campaign and played a huge role in seeing that happen, talking to the lawmakers about what it would be like if they could not recruit and retain a diverse workforce. They've given money to the African American Leadership Foundation, which has played a vital role in keeping the heat on in terms of closing the achievement gap in our schools, and has held some mayoral forums that have really opened up, and I can see some candidates out here smiling at this, that has really opened up sort of the nature of the debate in what has really mostly been a one-party town. And I think that they've done that in part because the mayor, while he doesn't have all the titular authority that he would like, and while he, as Cam pointed out, has some real limitations in terms of waving the magic wand and making this the place we all want it to be, has played a pivotal role in getting those people to the table. The mayor has a Rolodex, and who the next mayor is and how they use that Rolodex is going to be critical to ensuring that some of these things continue.
Well, that was very succinct.
Very
You're
succinct
welcome.
indeed.
And
Well, we
a
really
nice
like
contrast.
Well, and so we just want to remind you that we'll be coming out into the audience after the break with our microphones. Michelle will carry one. We have Siobhan Kieran's
Siobhan's
back
in the
here.
back waving.
Here's the sweet Irish lass carrying the other microphone. Excuse me, people. In any event, then after we come back, we'll talk a little bit about ranked choice voting, just briefly, so you can get a taste of what's supposed to be going on in November. And then after that, we will ask you now to pipe up and talk about it. So once again, we're talking about who has the power in Minneapolis to get things done. And who runs this city? What is your role in this whole power play. Our panelists tonight are Minneapolis Ward 2 City Council member Cam Gordon, MCTC political science professor Lena Jones, Kat Salonek, an organizer with OccupyHomesMN, and Beth Hawkins, independent journalist and blogger and regular contributor to minpost.com. And by golly, she put up a defense for the mayor. So this is going to be great.
We're going to take a quick 2-minute break here. So you will have a little time to get up and walk around, but don't go too far. It is strictly 2 minutes. So stick around. We'll be right back with more of this conversation about who runs Minneapolis here on Truth to Tell Community Connections.
Don't go away. Don't get up. Go away.
You are watching Truth to Tell's Community Connections series.
We're back here on Truth to Tell Community Connections. I'm Michelle Ali-Marati.
And I'm Andy Driscoll, and back to our discussion on power in Minneapolis in just a moment. And I hope you're all prepared to respond to these great panelists of ours and to yourselves. Right now, we just want to take a minute to talk about the ranked choice voting ballots you'll be encountering come November. Our friends at Fair Vote Minnesota are here tonight, and they have a table just outside our studio space here. But we'll give them a quick moment to explain why. And thank you, Anya.
Yes, we have Anya Spano here from Fair Vote Minnesota to tell you a little bit about the ranked choice ballots this year.
Great, and thank you for having me. So what is ranked choice voting? Ranked choice voting essentially means that instead of voting for one person, you get to rank your preferences. So you pick your first, second, and third choice. And if you go outside and you look at the ballot, you'll see exactly how it will look when you vote on November 5th. And so it doesn't mean that you get more than one choice. It just means that if your first choice candidate, for whatever reason, doesn't have enough votes to win, your vote is not wasted. Your vote is transferred to your second choice. And if your second choice candidate doesn't have enough votes to win, then your vote is transferred to your third choice. So what this means is that we as voters have more choice and more power to elect people that share our values. It means that we get to vote our hearts and vote on the issues that we care about and not have to worry about wasting our vote per se. And so why do we have this process? In 2006, the people of Minneapolis voted on a referendum similar to the marriage amendment or voter ID, where we said yes or no. Do we want to change the law of Minneapolis to be ranked choice voting? And we passed that. So we used it in 2009, but really this is the true first test to ranked choice voting, as with our competitive open mayoral election with city council and park and rec and board of estimate and taxation. And so I'll leave it with this. I would say that as you're listening to the candidates over the next month and thinking about who you want to vote for, don't think of how you're used to thinking of it, which is who is my favorite or how can I game the system to get who I want elected. Think of the issues that really matter to you. And think of which candidate is strongest on those issues. Vote for that person as your first choice. But if that candidate can't win for whatever reason, pick a second choice and pick a third choice. It's not going to help you as a voter to pick one person, because if that candidate doesn't win, then your ballot is done. And candidates that you like are going to need second and third choice votes from their opponent's supporters. And so it helps us all as candidates and as voters to rank all the way down and use the full power of our vote. So that's all.
Thank you very much, Anya Spano, Fair Vote.
Thank you, Anya.
Explaining the ranked choice, still relatively new ranked choice ballot, and like she said, this year will really be pivotal to use all of your choices because there are so many choices to choose from. And so now we'll talk about those choices.
And for more information, by the way, you can just a reminder, you can find more about RCV up at fairvote.org.
You can.
You can also hear a program that we aired a few weeks ago on TruthToTell.org. You just go up to our archive and spin down, and Gene Massey, who's the president of that organization, was on our air along with some other folks. And so it was a very good discussion. Tom O'Connell, the chair of our board, and Michelle conducted that interview, and we hope you'll tune it in to get more details and maybe straighten out a few questions that you might have about how it's going to apply to 35 mayoral candidates.
And we'll remind you again, there is a table outside with materials from Fair Vote explaining more about the RCV ballot if you want to take a look at those on your way out. And now we're going to bring in our audience. So you've heard from our panelists, you've heard their perspectives on who runs Minneapolis and what influences that power that the people that they think have the power have. So now we're going to take it to you and get responses. I see a hand over here.
Hi, I'm Bob again. It looks like there's about maybe 20 students here. We're about the same number over at the U. By and large, people are not interested in voting in this city, and it's a perfectly rational view, because whoever in the majority major so-called serious candidates wins, it's not going to matter. The baseline will go up a little bit, go down a little bit. But you know, on ranked choice voting, we have some potential. It used to be you could just choose one person. Voting and the ballot is free speech. It is the essence of free speech. It is our speech to the government saying who we want to be our public servants and what referendums and policies we want to adopt when they're put on the ballot. It is not the government's ballot. It's the people's ballot. And we've got to take it back. Now, in ranked choice voting, it used to be you could just say 2 words when the government asked you to speak on that. Now, we're able to say a short sentence. We can have 3 names in our sentence. But after those 3 names, the government is still telling you, shut up. We're only going to allow 3 choices. So it used to be 1, now we can say 3. Now, the question here is, who runs Minneapolis? It's not a political machine. It is a machine. It is the robots. It is the vote counting software and hardware. I was at the election committee's meeting and did about a 5,000 word note on that, close to a transcript of the decision as to how many choices to allow. And the fact is, the decision was made to allow 3 choices because the machines can't count more than 3 choices. Now, here's what that means. If you have 6 or 7 supposedly serious candidates...
We didn't want to get into a discussion about RCV tonight.
Okay, but you did want to ask who runs the city.
So if you just make a statement about that, let it go, please.
Okay. Well, why don't I finish up with 20 seconds or so? How about that? Okay. So the answer is the machines run the city. That allows us to have 3 choices. We should be able to count all rankings and to have the ballot hand counted. That's the right thing to do, to allow people to speak in complete sentences instead of just 3 candidates. Thank you.
We want to remind everybody that this is not a debate about RCV, and that is the important thing. So Betsy Hodges would like to say a word, I know.
Okay.
Betsy? She's a mayoral candidate.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Betsy Hodges. I am currently council member from Ward 13, southwest corner of Minneapolis, running for mayor. And what everybody on the panel had to say is interesting from the position I sit in tonight as a candidate for mayor, because y'all are right. I mean, there's a whole web of things that have an impact on decisions you have to make as a candidate. But I will say this. One of the reasons we have a hybrid, weak mayor, strong council system, originally was the intention was to have the community have more of a say and more direct access to the elected officials. That's one of the reasons our government is structured the way that it is. So there's a big opportunity in Minneapolis for organizing and organizers and the community to have an impact on what happens at Minneapolis. And I think Cam was saying that we have seen that over and over again. Organizing works. Organizing works, and it works in Minneapolis. But one of the challenges, we are in a web of how do you make sure as a candidate that you will be an independent thinker, make independent choices. And one of the ways that I've had to confront that is to say the exact same thing wherever I go about every issue. Because then people are deciding whether or not they choose to support me based on the vision that I have. And at that point, I am not beholden to special interests. I am independent in many ways. I am responsible to a vision that I share with people who have decided to support me.
Betsy,
Thank you, Betsy. And we're going to try to keep all of our comments brief because we have a lot of people here with a lot of questions. So just brief question.
Seconds, maybe like, well, the
question is, who runs Minneapolis, right? Right. So everyone else stood up, and I had my hand up. Hi, my name is Hannah, and I'm here. And
have to go to the front every time.
oh, well, then I'll sit.
Well,
anyways.
No, you can stand up.
All
please.
I'm wanting to say is that the people run Minneapolis. The people pave the roads. The people die in the streets. The children are hungry. The students are poor. We look nice. Some people dress nice, but all these are rags that I got when I was homeless. Washed them, still homeless. But I go to school here. I love it here. You know why? Because it has heat and water and bathrooms and a lot of other things. And the students and the people are the future. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you, Hannah. I have a question here. Or I'm sorry, he had his hand up first. Do you mind if I go over here first?
Yes, this man.
And your name?
Dr. Edmund Briere. I am one of the less serious candidates.
Oh, the less serious candidate?
Yes, and I have my PhD from Loyola University, Chicago.
I see. That's
I
pretty
showed
serious.
up at Mill City Museum last month to participate in the education debate, in the achievement gap. I have my master's degree in special education, my bachelor's degree in education. I've been an educator for a number of years now. I'm also a veteran, and we are supposed to live in a yellow ribbon city. And the veterans are not being given a voice in this process. I showed up to Mill City Museum to participate in the debate, and you would have figured that at least one of the more serious candidates in the debate would have said, why don't you let an educator get involved in this debate? And I showed up and they turned me away.
Okay. Well, okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Briere. Now,
Thank you.
Yours, you can make a pitch for your candidacy if you like. I think the business of who runs Minneapolis is still the core question that we're trying to reach. So we have a man right here.
Right
I know.
here. Do you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I'm Merrill Anderson. I'm an old street fighter and community organizer.
And you're a candidate for mayor.
That happens to be so, sir. I wasn't going to mention it. Thank you.
You're perfectly welcome.
We have an example of raw power coming forward in Minneapolis now in regard to the Viking Stadium. We have the governor and a so-called panel in control of what happens to the Vikings, all involved in things that the...
You talk about the stadium authority now?
Well, the citizens of Minneapolis had a right to a referendum. The city charter says so. The citizens voted that they be able to vote the stadium up or down.
Yes.
They were pushed out of that. I think we got a tremendous legal battle looming in regard to the stadium, and whether you think the stadium is right or wrong, the quote powers that be unquote have stolen from the voters of Minneapolis a basic right under the city charter. I know you want me to hurry.
Well, we'll have to, because we want to get as many people in as possible.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Mayor.
So I bring that up, and
So you're saying that
I would like to hear what your students out here think about this
all right.
stolen
Let's see if we
right.
can get them to comment.
All right, and I'm actually I have some things to say too, so I'm gonna hang on to this mic and just hold it in front of you guys, all right? So I can get some words in here too. So, you've got a question, tell me your name.
My name is Ramon Zanders, and I'm a full-time student here at MCTC.
Great, welcome.
Oh, I can ask. Well, you asked the question, who has the power? I had a question that I want to ask you, but I'm going to first answer that. Well, in my personal opinion, I've been here 5 years, and I've experienced things I haven't experienced in the previous state that I was living in. And I was living in a pretty segregated city, New York City. And what I've experienced here is there's no community. And the power is with the community that has the resources. So I believe like the communities that have the education to not teach themselves but teach others, the funds or the economic status, the support within that community, and an interest in the topic itself, so voting and the process, the political process. So what I've stumbled upon, at least with fellow students, is that there's no support in certain communities. And if they don't have not just the support, they don't have the political understanding, they can't even support themselves.
And there's specific communities that you're thinking of?
Yes, East St. Paul, North Minneapolis, not all now, but predominantly when you see the news, when I turn on the news, I see something negative about North Minneapolis. I see about a shooting, a robbery, something of that nature. When I turn on the news, I see something negative about East St. Paul, West St. Paul. You understand what I'm saying? South Minneapolis. There's no one putting out any information about the positivity goes on within this community about culture, the Somali population, the Native population, the African American community. So before anybody can sit here and talk about stadiums and all of these other things, what they need to understand is that to the point that the young lady did have to some degree is that we have a huge homeless population here. We have students who worry about feeding their younger brothers, their older siblings, and the last thing they think about when they come to school is actually school. You understand what I'm saying? So the powers and the powers within the community that has all the resources, that don't use those resources for the community that need them. So how do we fix that?
Okay, thank you very much for your contribution.
Do we want to get some panelist responses from that?
Anybody up here wants to talk about it, and then we'll bring the microphone back over here. Go ahead, Lena. Lena Jones.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that was...
Speak up, woman.
Yes. I mean, that was some really powerful comments, you know, and I think your point about how, in some ways, participation is almost a luxury. You know, having the time to, and particularly to take the time to research all the candidates, you know, take the time to go vote when you're thinking about survival. Again, I think your point is a good one, you know, and one that I think often people don't think about when they think, you know, they say, all right, citizen, all this stuff is an obligation of being a citizen. Don't think about those things. Now, one of the things,
go ahead.
When I think about my role as a teacher, you know, one of the most important roles I feel is working with my students to make, I guess, the barriers to participation lower.
Yes.
You know?
And let me ask you this question, and let me ask everybody this question, because one of the things that's been true of municipal elections for way too long is that the election turnouts have been depressingly low. That is, the lack of engagement in those elections does seem to me to be an automatic de-empowering or a disempowering kind of behavior on the part of voters. Why do we not turn out for local elections? Why do we turn out for 78 percentage points for the presidency of the United States and not for the government that is closest to you here at home? Think about that question as we go on here.
And we've got a question over here. Can you tell me your name?
Yeah. My name is Captain Jack Sparrow. I'm in disguise tonight, so you may not recognize me, but I assure you that is my legal name. I'm also a participant in Occupy Homes, although I've been told not to speak for them, and I don't, but I am a proud member of Occupy Homes, who's just doing excellent work in the city of Minneapolis. Betsy Hodges mentioned that one of the reasons that we have a strong council government is so that the city council are maybe closer to the citizens, and I think that's true. But I was really shocked when I went to see the last vote of the city council when they voted on the stadium, where we could have delayed that stadium, maybe stopped the stadium, but both Betsy Hodges and Cam Gordon voted in favor of it. So if they're close to the people, I'm not sure why that's happening.
Whoop. You have a dispute here.
Okay.
Cam?
Yeah, there was a small vote about the design and the plan and the street, and that passed it. But neither Councilmember Hodges or I voted for the stadium. In fact, we fought tooth and nail against the special law that allowed it, and the whole funding stream and the funding source. The vote that we took had nothing to do with that funding or the
Well, that's an important point, because
so
these are...
I know it can get conflated, and a lot of people who were opposed to the stadium felt like you should vote against anything, a street redesign in front of the stadium or anything associated with the design. You should keep voting no, 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 and that's not necessarily the way I operate. And I really appreciated the comment about the communities that have the resources should help contribute to the communities that don't. So I'm just going to jump in there since I have the mic and suggest maybe that's a role of government, and that's one of the things that we want to be able to do is to use our resources, pool our resources together so that we can make sure that we're supporting the common good. And that's certainly, I think, a role you should expect your elected officials to help do. So as we tax those people who have the resources, what can we do to provide the housing and the job opportunities for the others?
And we'll have one brief rebuttal here.
Jack, Jack, I just wanted to be sure that Jack knew that his challenge to the to the votes that Betsy Hodges and Cam made were going to be rebutted. Go ahead.
We have a brief rebuttal here from Captain Jack, and then we're going to take another comment.
Yeah, I don't need to rebut that. I think Cam spoke well for his position there. I wanted to say, though, that we asked the question again, why people don't vote in Minneapolis. Bob Carney answered that question. It doesn't make any difference. If you have a regime candidate, it doesn't make any difference who gets elected. It's all going to be the same within 5%. There won't be any difference at all. But if you vote for one of these other candidates in here, The Rock, you vote for Bob Carney, vote for myself, there will be a change. There will be a difference. Vote for one of us. Now, also, when we asked to have all the votes counted, and my political principle is count all rankings, we were told by the city clerk, he came to our meeting on the People's Plaza, and said we would be charged with felonies if we produce our own ballot, if we have our own ballot box, and do it ourselves. So
very quickly now.
Thank you.
I mean, thank you very much, Captain. Okay, yes, Stephanie Woodruff.
All right, how are you?
Very good.
Mayoral candidate.
Excellent. Can I hold this?
I'll hold it, and then and I can talk to you if I have a comment.
Okay, all right. Stephanie Woodruff, I'm a candidate for mayor. I'm a DFL, but I'm endorsed by the Independence Party. And I'm sorry I was late. I had another event, so I didn't get a chance to listen to the panelist. But it was interesting, the comments from the students. And you know what? You are exactly right. This is my first time running for office, and it's been an amazing experience in terms of going out and listening to the residents. And Hannah, you are exactly right. There are 10% of the student population at MCTC that is homeless, and that represents 1,400 people. And I actually saw the documentary, the video called The Silent Homeless. And honestly, it just breaks my heart that we've got people that want to lift themselves up in terms of get a college education, and the fact that they're homeless and they're sleeping in this college is unacceptable. So the more that we can take the power and push it down to the people and empower people to lift everybody up, the better we're going to be. Minneapolis is an amazing city, and Councilmember Hodges, Councilmember Gordon, who have done wonderful work over the years, but there's so much more that we can be doing in terms of engaging the neighborhoods. That's one thing that I've been on this campaign trail that I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked, and that's probably explains the reason why people don't feel that their vote is important, or that they don't feel engaged to vote, versus they feel on the national level that this is my duty, my right to vote. So, the more that we can engage the neighborhoods and include them, I think all in all, we create a win-win within Minneapolis.
Thank you very much. We have a comment over here.
Just to let you know, very briefly, we are going to have another half hour of discussion after we sign off the regular show in about 6-7 minutes. But we want you to stick around, and the cameras will roll, the microphones will be on. All of this will be recorded, and we will put it up online. So it's an additional opportunity for all of you to get your licks in. How's that? Okay, did you have a
comment from
that's
The Rock.
The Rock.
Well, thank you. I'm Abdul M. Rahman, The Rock, and I'm a mayoral candidate as well. And I just want to keep things clear, because I think that, as I said, we the people, that's my motto, and that's because the Constitution, that's the way it begins. And so the intention is that the people are going to run the country. And it's set up that way mechanically, with jury systems, with elections, and the responsibility the elected have to the people who voted for them. In terms of what we're talking about as who runs Minneapolis, I think that we want to keep it clear, because words and programs, parties, or organizations cloud the issue sometimes. These people have all talked about different things on the panel, but lift the sheet off of the thing and it's money, just like you were all coming to. When you talk about homeless, if you go to a person and says, what do you need? You say, I need a home. Hey, you need money. What do you need? I need some food. No, you need money. So money is the great evil, and it's not just our country. We are the last hope for the world, actually, because we're a free country. So we have the principles of we the people, and that's what we need to express. But the people have a responsibility. Like you say, they don't show up at the grassroots level, and that's vital to the Constitution functioning correctly. The people have to be active. When Kennedy said that, it's not what your country can do for you, it's what you can do for your country, he meant be a citizen and make these people hold their feet to the fire. Every one of the civil servants here perhaps forgot that they took an oath when they took their office, whether they were cops, councilmen, the president, a secretary, or anything. They said, I swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States. How come they don't even know one sentence from the Constitution? So the important part is to keep everything clear. Money is an evil, and it's not in control by the Congress like it should be, according to the Constitution, and it's running the country.
Thank you. We're going to get one more comment in before we sign off here.
Very quickly.
What is your name?
Hi, I'm Shannon Gibney. I'm also have the pleasure of being a faculty member here with our amazing students. I teach in the English department primarily. I just kind of want to address the issue of racial disparities. I mean, it's at this point, when I first moved here 10 years ago.
In about a minute, please, Shannon.
Okay. It's sort of now in the public discourse now, but I don't really see any of the mayoral candidates actually coming forth, and very few people who are in power positions actually coming forth with how specific programs of how they're going to deal with this. Because as many people know, we have the largest disparities in every indicator.
And what's your recommendation, quickly, Shannon?
What's my recommendation?
Yeah, what is it? What's your recommendation?
Well, we need to actually get more people who, from the communities that are the most vulnerable in positions. I mean, even this, this is great. This is a great, discussion. But I mean, I would like to see where's the Native population, where's Latino folks.
We have invited everybody that wants to come. So.
I'm not. It's not a personal attack. I'm just saying that's a huge part of the problem is that we don't actually have people from communities who are most impacted by these things to actually represent themselves.
Thank you so much,
Thank you very much.
We must end our regular. Thank you so much. We must end our regular radio and television program here. We'll sign off and then take a quick 30-second break before we head into this additional half hour. We were talking about an answer time that will be posted online, so don't go anywhere. Please do. So our guests have been.
We have with us today Beth Hawkins, who's a Twin Cities independent blogger and journalist and regular contributor to MinnPost. We have Kat Salonek, who is a community organizer with Occupy Homes Minnesota. We have with us Ward 2 City Council member Cam Gordon, and we also have a political science professor, and remind me again of the community organizing community development program here at MCTC. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.
And we, first of all, links to an audio and video archives of this entire show, as well as the other half hour, will be found at TruthToTell.org after Monday evening. And just come on over and listen to it yourselves, and you can watch it on MTC Channel 16.
MTN.
Did I say MCTC?
And we'll be
I'm so sorry.
MTN
Yes, MTN.
Channel 16.
MTN Channel 16.
Yeah, and SPNN Channel
19. And City College News will have information. So thanks to David Zerot and his SPNN crew for their work in capturing all of this on video. And many thanks to Peter Hansen, Kel Heil, Mark Kerner, and Siobhan Kierans for their production assistance as well.
Truth to Tell is a co-production of Civic-Media-Minnesota and KFAI. And we already told you where you can get all the links to all this show, so I guess we'll go ahead and sign off here. I'm Michelle Ali-Murati.
And just join us next month, and I'm Andy Driscoll. See you then, and remember, as always, please do take care of each other.
I started out with a message. That's all I had in my mind. Television was sort of an afterthought. Hi, my name is Christine, and I'm a host and producer of a show about holistic health on SPNN. So my show is called Healing Arts 101, and it's all about holistic health. And what I do is I go out and interview practitioners of different holistic health practices, such as acupuncture, naturopathy, shamanism, energy work. I pretty much do all the work on my own. I produce it, I host it, I edit it all on my own. And without SPNN, I wouldn't be able to have done any of that. I've taken the classes, the staff has been excellent. I just want to say, if you are interested in doing a show, it is a lot of work, but it's possible. Something out there that you want to tell the world, this is the perfect place to come to be able to share that message. My name is Christine. I host and produce Healing Arts 101 on SPNN. If you're interested in producing your own show, you should come on down.